Welcome to another episode of Knickerbocker Banter. I'm your host, Harris Wishard. With me today, a guest that really doesn't need an introduction, but deserves one. Of course, MSG Network, ESPN, Get Up, Don Hahn and Rosenberg. You've seen him everywhere. He's a true legend in the business. Alan Hahn, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here. This is my favorite time of year because it's preseason. We start getting focused on what the coming season's going to be, and I love talking to all the different bloggers and podcasters and everybody about it because it's this might be one of the most anticipated seasons the Knicks have had in a long time.
Absolutely. And, being that you're from Long Island and we have a strong Long Island contingent, I got to talk about your upbringing and your origin. We know St. Anthony's, CW Post. Can you describe Alan Hahn, the kid that grew up loving the game, what type of player you were and how you first fell in love with this game?
Yeah, there's not much to talk about player-wise. I really loved to play. I wasn't very good. I probably could have worked a lot harder. But just typical kid from Long Island playing, street hockey and football. Every season that's what we played. And then I picked up basketball later in life at a growth spurt. And, my dad looked at me like, well, you should give it a try. You're taller than everybody else. And so I gave it a try. And if not for any of that, it wouldn't have led me to here. But there's not much to talk about on that front. But I like just growing up on Long Island. To me, living on Long Island, I've tried to leave many times, move somewhere else, to chase a job somewhere. And it's always brought me back here to a point where I just realized like this is where I belong. So I'm very, very proud of my Long Island roots. Where are you from?
I went to Belmore JFK, grew up in
Okay.
there. Yeah. So, and then ended up playing SUNY New Paltz, Division III
Nice.
basketball. So
There you
I have
go.
a friend that went to Post. So, I've been around. I know you were just there for homecoming too, right?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They took the campuses. It used to be where Post was a separate school, Division II.
Hmm.
And then a bunch of years ago, they took LIU Brooklyn and LIU Post and made them one. And so it's one big school now, two campuses, and they're kind enough to still recognize the fact that even though I wasn't among their Division One athletes, they still continue to recognize me as an alum. So it's great, and we're trying to build the next generation of broadcasters over there too. So always good to do that, no doubt about it. So you're a Nassau guy.
Yeah, and you know what? You make a lot of
Different basketball in Nassau now, man. It's
people.
different. It's different ball, man. Like out of
Yeah,
the sticks, I went to St. Anthony's, which is a Huntington school, but I
absolutely.
grew up out, like I grew up in Ronkonkoma. And so there wasn't, you weren't going to the park in Ronkonkoma and finding pretty good run, right? You had to find it wherever you could. So friends of mine, we'd go like to Brentwood,
Hmm.
Central Islip, Wyandanch. We'd find, wherever we knew. Port Jefferson, believe it or not, there was really good run up there for a while on a Saturday, right in the village. You'd get really good run up there. Coram, wherever you could get good run, you'd go. And,
Absolutely.
it wasn't as easy in Nassau. You just go to any elementary school gym and you could find Chris Mullen and Wally Zerbiak playing, and you could jump into those runs.
Well, Wally, the legend at Cold Spring Harbor,
Yep.
I coached at MacArthur, and we play them. It's like a shrine for him over there. They treat him
Yes.
like he's a god there. But yeah, and you got Danny Green and some names here or there.
Yep.
I haven't heard
Yep.
any big ones lately, but I had to go outside the Long Island bubble to seek the competition, whether that meant going to play in the city,
Yep.
tournaments, Jersey, and traveling about. I miss that. I mean, I coach young kids now in fourth grade, but I just miss those like weekends, whether it was like an Albany gym rat tournament and just, you get a snack in between and play like four games in a day. I mean,
Yeah.
there was nothing better than that, really.
Yeah. I really wasn't part of the AAU life. Like
Right.
that came after me. For us, there were, you'd play in different leagues, like spring leagues. And like Rockville Center had a good spring league. It was real tough. And we would go there as a group, like St. Anthony's guys. We would put a team together and play there in different ways. But we never really got to be part of that kind of thing where you went to tournaments. I never really got to experience that. For me, it was five-star basketball camp, Metro Index basketball camp, like all the big camps you'd go to and you'd spend a week, or even sometimes I'd go back-to-back weeks. I'd get 1 week where I'd pay, and then the coach, they would say like, "You want to come for another week?" And I would stay and just do another week.
Mm.
And that was like you'd see players from all over the country, all over at least the Northeast, and you'd man, that's the reality check, man. When you see the
Oh
back of
yeah.
some dude's sneakers, because you cut back door and he went up for an alley oop, and you're just like, yo, I just saw the back of that guy's sneakers. Like, I don't think I'm good at this.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just get flashbacks of you mentioned Five Star. For me, it was Eastern Invitational.
Yep. Yeah. 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 I
Having
remember
the
that.
fan, the rooms being about 110 degrees. You brought your fan, man. It was just all basketball, going to different,
You didn't
stations.
even care. No, you didn't even
Yeah.
care. You just waited to the end of the day to shower, right?
Yeah.
Like you just knew, like, all right, wait till the end of the day. And those early wake ups. So Honesdale, Pennsylvania was one of the places for the five-star camp, and you were literally in cabins.
Yeah.
That's it. Imagine putting about 8 to 10 14 to 17-year-old boys in a cabin,
Yeah.
no adults. And that's it. And when it was lights out,
Yep.
you were like it basically your rest depended on what kind of cabin you had in that camp. Because there were times where we're not sleeping tonight. Like it's not happening. It was wild time, but
For
those
the
were
love of
great
the game,
memories.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to talk about you a little bit. I know, you're a humble man from what I hear from you and just from following you. But I want to talk about, Newsday and then
Mhm.
that transition you had made to get to MSG. Like I know you were covering multiple sports. Then you were on the Knicks beat, right?
Yeah.
And then what allowed you to take that next step? I know you were writing blogs and you were putting content out, but again, how did MSG come calling? How'd that come about?
Well, I had been a beat writer, so at that time I was covering the Knicks, and it was going into the 2010 summer, and that was, the summer of LeBron and all the big, that was a huge free agency summer.
Right.
And I was covering that, extensive, like we all were. Everybody was chasing that. And MSG had a show in the summer that it was a free agency update. Because, again, we knew the Knicks went 2 years just
Mhm.
dumping salary to get cap space to chase some of these big stars. And so the network decided we're gonna once a week do a show on this free agency and really get everybody excited. And they asked me to come on and do a segment to just give some news, things I'm reporting. And I did. I did literally one segment, but I really enjoyed it. And I think it was that show later they're like, stick around, come back for another segment later in the show. Okay. So I jumped back on and I enjoyed that.
Mm.
And then I guess a week later, as we got closer to July 1st, they said, do you want to come on again? I was like, sure, I'll come on again. And this time I was on like for like a couple of segments in a row. And then the decision happened, and they wanted me to come on that night for the decision. I had already reported that LeBron was going to go to Miami.
Mhm.
Nobody was happy with me with that, but that reality is what it is.
We all remember that.
Yeah, and so we did a thing where before the decision, we did a little show, and then after the decision, we did a reaction show.
Mm.
So I ended up doing the whole thing, front and back. And then it was like, come back next week, come back next week. So I kind of felt like I got into, we all started, their producers and myself were both like saying, like, I kind of like this. I never thought about, I swear, never
Mm.
thought about doing TV, never thought about doing radio. I was always a writer, still to the core. Those who follow me, I
Mhm.
still keep this Facebook page
Yep.
that I write out game reports because I
I've
still
seen that.
need to do it. It's just something in me. So when the opportunity came during the next season, and they said, hey, can you do some post game shows every now and then
Mm.
when we need somebody? And I said, sure. So I did a bunch of post game shows that year. And Newsday was kind enough to allow me to do it when it fit my schedule. Either I was off that night or it was an afternoon game. And I mean, I was a disaster doing it in the beginning. I had no idea. I had no training, but they were so good. I call it MSG University. They
Mm.
were so good about just teaching me as I went. Every mistake I made, just like, oh, no, just do this, just do that. I don't know how many other people get that opportunity, but I did, and I was lucky.
Mm.
So when that season ended and there was a lockout, and so nothing was going on, I was covering everything for Newsday. And I stayed in touch with MSG, and it was just, and I give credit to Jack Curry, who was hired by Yes Network. He came out of the New York Times to be an analyst for the S Network on Yankees games, and Jack was really good at it. And some of the MSG people like recognized that, and they just said, you know, we want to create a role like that for you. Would you be interested? And it was a bit of a risk because if I
Hmm.
sucked at it, I'm not going. Newsday's like, well, we've already filled your job. Like, there's no job now.
Wow.
So it was a risk. Um, but I was like, yeah, let me give this a shot. And so the rest is, I guess, history. But it wasn't anything I pursued. I never thought for a minute that it'd be something that I'd be doing. And now going into this season, I'll be a broadcaster for more years than I was a journalist out of college, which
Incredible.
is wild to believe, but that's really how it all went down. And it's nothing I did. It's all somebody saw something in me and said, if we teach you and you work at it, you could be good at this. And like I said, I just couldn't suck.
Yeah, well, you always talk about the word preparation. I've heard you on several podcasts talk
Yep.
about having that work ethic. Is that an example of you being prepared, doing your homework, and getting that opportunity? Was your intuition telling you, hey, I can't turn down this opportunity? I'm sure there was a little, I want to say fear involved, but maybe hesitancy to say, hey, I got to go back to what's comfortable. And you kind of took that leap of faith, knowing that you were, your gut was telling you something.
There was a lot of fear. You're absolutely right. And I think that fear motivated me to have a work ethic
Mm,
that I knew, if I didn't bring, I would fail. I would not be good. I don't have a natural TV thing. Like I guess certain people have, this ease. I didn't. I had to learn it. And I still am learning it. But to me, it was about preparation. If you have command of the topic and the subject, once you start going, you don't feel like you're on TV, like you don't realize it.
mm,
So when you're not prepared, it shows. And I learned that quickly, and I do believe that was something that I think helped that and the ability to write. So I had phrases that were already I was able to just recall quickly how I described plays, how I describe something, or even quotes. And you quote a player, you remember what they say because as a writer, that's just all in you. As you're typing, as you're writing your story, these are things that come back to you, descriptions. And I do think a lot of that helped build that foundation. But I mean, success comes when preparation and opportunity meet, right? And
mm.
so preparation is the one thing I can control. I can't control opportunity. Opportunity has to arrive, but if I'm not ready for it, I can't have success. So that's always been for me the most important thing when it comes to this job is the depth of knowledge and the preparation that gives you that. And once you have all that, when you start talking, when you start describing what you know or what you see or what you understand, the nerves go away because you don't think about the camera, you don't think about how many people are watching, you don't think about I don't want to sound stupid or say something dumb because you're too busy thinking about the things that you want to relay information wise.
Absolutely. You know what? I've heard you on several podcasts, and and Breen, as I've heard mention this before about being a point guard, being a team player,
Yes.
emphasizing chemistry. Where, I mean, obviously maybe your basketball background, but what has allowed you and Wally and Bill Pito and working with now Don and Roseberg, what's kind of allowed you to always have that point guard leadership and just be a team guy and understand how important that is to the success of the group?
Well, I've always craved team. As a sports writer, it's very lonely because it's you, like that's it. There's no collaborative really. I mean, you have an editor, but that's there's no collaborative. And I've always craved being part of a team ever since I was no longer part of a team.
Mm,
And I never really, and I'll be honest, and I've never said this, I never understood what it was to be a team player. Because as a kid, you're just so focused on yourself and
mm.
you want to be good and you want to play a lot and you want to win. All these things you're trying to achieve. And for some, it comes easy. For me, it didn't. You don't understand like how valuable having teammates are until they're gone. Having that locker room, the thing I missed the most was the locker room. The trips, the bus, all that stuff. Like there's just something, those were great days that I took for granted. And so the opportunity to have that again, and now that I know it better and understand it, I think that's something that I really enjoyed. And it's if one of us looks bad, we all look bad, right? And I think that's also something you think about. So if one of us, so if somebody's making a mistake, you want to like kind of prop 'em, like catch him and prop him up, like move it along, like whatever it is. You try to think of ways that like we work together to look good because and I've worked with some people like this. When you're trying to outshine the other,
Mm,
it shows. I mean, it's just so obvious. And it's not like you might not realize it's happening, but it's a bad look. And I don't like that. So I try my best to tell myself to make sure that whoever I'm working with, I get the best out of them, the most out of them. And that was my goal in a lot of different ways when I started becoming a host in radio, is whether it was Rick DiPietro,
mm,
who had no clue how to do radio, but had something and I knew it. And I
mm,
was like, I can get it out of him. I know I can.
mm,
And I feel like I did. And he's phenomenal now. I worked with Keyshawn Johnson and Jay Williams
mm,
on a national morning show. I filled in for 5 months, and that to me was like they were unsure about their show and where they fit and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, we're gonna make this work. Like we're gonna get the most out of them. Bart Scott, who's like he's so much fun to work with, and it's always finding what's his strength, and I'm going to make sure I get that out of him all the time. Wally's just a pro. He's easy. Throw an alley oop and he's got it. Like he understands it better than anybody I've ever worked with. When it comes to when I set him up, he knows it's coming. Like he's a bona fide scorer, whether it's in the game or
mm,
whether it's on TV. He just know it's an instinct. He knows it, and that's like Monica McNutt is the same way. Monica is like she picks up what I'm putting down. It rarely is it a miss, and it looks like great chemistry, but it also is it's a skill.
mm.
And then obviously Don LaGreca is such a big personality that a lot of times, and especially in the beginning, I had to learn two things. One, get out of the way. Two, like don't get caught being a listener and viewer because I've done that where he's going and I forget that hey, keep it moving. Don't just sit there with your mouth open like wow that was awesome. You gotta so Mike Breen taught me great on that. Al Troutwig taught me great about that, and Mike Greenberg, Greeny at ESPN might be one of the best ever at it, where
Mm.
he gets the best out of everyone he works with, whether they're super talented or whether they're first time on camera nervous. He can get you to a place where you're comfortable and the best of your best comes out. And that's what I'm trying to be that.
Well, I mean, it looks like you guys are having a ton of fun. You joke
Yeah,
out there, but I
just
think a lot
about.
of people understand that from like a basketball standpoint. But when it comes to what you're doing, it's equally as important, right? Like we have a common goal, right? And that's cool to hear about
Exactly.
and everybody that you had the opportunity to work with. But to transition to some of the Nick moments, and
Yep.
obviously we have a very exciting season. I YouTube the last couple days the Brunson moment again, and what I think is ironic about that is a few days ago, and you reposted this, you saw it. Someone asked him his favorite moment as a Knick so far,
Hmm.
and he, I don't know how quickly he answered. He took like a moment to think about it, and he goes, "The All-Star interview." And so I go back and watch. I get goosebumps watching that because as an athlete, both of us never on that level, but he's thinking about, I'm sure, those workouts when he was 13 with his dad on the court, right? And then
Yeah.
how special that moment was at the Garden. Is there a pride that you take in being able to create that for him? And you wouldn't take credit, obviously, but you said talk about the journey. Can you, kind of elaborate on what that kind of meant for you and him sharing that moment together?
Yeah, I cringe when I watch it because first the backstory is that was before I was doing sideline. I was filling in that day. So
Mm,
fate just put me there. Like I wasn't supposed to do that interview. That was again, I was filling in that night. Last minute too. When boss called me and was just like, "Hey, I need you to do sideline tonight." I was like, "I've never done that, but okay."
yeah.
And so, as fate would have it, that's what happened. He had an incredible finish to the game, and then, of course, before the game was named an All Star for the first time. So I cringe because I don't think I was smooth enough for
Mm,
that. Like I don't think I handled it right. when it comes to the interview part. But I did know, shut up, right? Like, let him hear the crowd. Don't make this like make this about him, not you. And it did work. That part worked, and I think that's just the journalist experience interviewing. Just seeing things like that was experience that taught me that. But I'm really disappointed because I thought that moment should have won an Emmy, and it didn't. It wasn't even nominated.
Wow.
And and I have never shared this, but I'm also disappointed because in my brain, after it was done, a text from millions of people, so many people that just really enjoyed it,
Hmm.
and I'm really happy about that. But a lot of people that are in the business were like, "Oh, that's going to win an Emmy. Like that's going to win an Emmy." I'm like, "All right." And then I told myself, if it does, I'm giving Jalen the trophy. I don't want it because
Wow.
that's his moment, right?
Hmm.
And so it didn't even get nominated. And so I'm like annoyed that I didn't have that moment to say, you earned this. Like here, like to give him, like I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And instead it just kind of some judges who watched it were like, oh, that wasn't good enough, which blows my mind because
Yeah.
how could you not get caught up in a moment like that? He got emotional, he teared up. I mean, it was great. But that whole thing has nothing to do with me. And I'm annoyed that, it didn't get the recognition that it deserved for Jalen, my
Yeah,
opinion.
it speaks volumes to who you are. You at first when you said that, you're talking about, annoyed that it didn't win, and then and you start listening to you talk, elaborate on it, and now
Well,
you want
again,
that
I'm
for him. You
thinking,
want you want
what
that
did I,
moment for Jalen Brunson,
well,
not
and
Alan Hahn.
what
Yeah,
bothers me really is what did I do wrong? Like I must have done something wrong that didn't convince judges this. Like, was it because I might have like I was a little not choked up, but I was a little like tight in that moment. So like you could tell the way I was talking, it wasn't smooth. I was just trying to be precise with my words, and maybe it didn't look like a good interview. I don't know,
yeah,
but he was fantastic, and that should have been his moment. So
yeah.
that's why I can't look at it and go, I mean, is it one of my favorite moments I've ever had in my career? Yes. But do I still look at it and think and be disappointed? Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Wow. Well, whose idea was MSGOG on the microphone? Are we allowed to talk about that or no? Because that's another great post game moment, I'm sure.
Well, I do have to give Nick's Twitter credit because I can't remember somebody like did an edit
Yeah,
of the microphone and put the MSGOG.
yeah,
And
sure.
I saw it, and so I told our audio guys and our social media guys, and I said, "Can we print a label that says
OG, I
MSOG?"
think it was MSOG, right?
MSOG, yeah. I said, "Can we print it and put it on the mic flag?" And it's like if he's having a great game, we know we're gonna interview him at the end of the game. Let's do it because it was fun.
Hmm.
And to their credit, like literally, because you don't know who you're interviewing until about 2 minutes to go in the game. And so once it was confirmed, like their PR guy said, "All right, you want to get OG?" Yeah. And then I texted right away, guys, how fast can we print this label out and put this around the mic flag? With like under a minute to go in the game, they came out with the mic flag with the printed MSOG on it. We swapped it out, put it on the mic. I took the picture of it, sent it out to social so everybody knew you want to keep it on, like keep the game on because this is coming. And it was, I mean, that was funny. But
Yeah.
that's again the team thing, right? The collaborative of
Right.
everybody working quickly to make something really cool happen. And but I do have to give credit to Nick's Twitter because the original idea did definitely came from there.
I thought it was just funny when Cat and Hart they're giving him a hard time about, hey, give it, take it, give it. Like OG just seems like the nicest person ever, so he's not doing it out of like give me the mic, ripping it.
No, he
Yeah.
it's so funny 'cause the first time when he took the mic
Mm.
and I let him, and it became that kind of funny moment of the back and forth.
Right.
We all laughed about it.
Mm.
And it is, though, what I learned, which I didn't know, that it's a rule. Do not ever give up the mic. The problem is because you don't know what they're going to do with it. Like they could say something, now it's out of your control. You always stay in control.
Mm.
I don't have that experience. I thought it was funny. And I also didn't think he was going to do anything crazy.
Right.
So the next time around, I'm like, all right, I really shouldn't give up the mic. So he reaches for it to take it. And when I was going to, I think that time was when Josh, or no, Kat said,
Mm.
give him his mic back or something like that. And I looked at OG's face and he was almost like embarrassed because he realized he was doing it again. So
Mhm.
we talked after, and I said to OG, I'm like, it's like we're good, right? Like I'm just having fun with it. He's like, oh yeah, yeah. I don't know why I do that. So that's why the third time around, when they all stood there, I think it was a campaign. It was just like
Yep,
they
I
all stood
remember
around.
campaign at the back.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're getting rolling here, right? Media day,
Yep.
training camp. I asked this to Christian Winfield the other day on the show about the amount of players coming to camp. Not only is it the most anticipated season, right, in 30 years, whatever the number is, right, mid
hmm
90s, but now
32.
you got a crowded camp that, with a new coach. I mean, is that energy level has got to be different going into this week?
I find it really interesting that they're doing that bottom of the roster competition thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows you also like see a lot of times you'll get veteran players who look at situations and say they could go on a run, I want to be part of that. And so they want to make the team. Like so you'll get a group of vets that like similar, not exactly the same, but similar to 2012-13 where all of a sudden you had like remember all the vets they had at the bottom of
Decent
that roster?
kid, Rasheed
Oh
Wallace.
yeah, like they all of a sudden you just had a whole bunch of OGs saying I want to be on this team because they had a feeling this could be a special year. Most of that season was a special year. Obviously didn't get over the hump, but that was a fun year, one of the most fun years the Knicks have had in a long time. So that's what I'm seeing here is the same thing. As you could just see there's some vets who might want to just get on this thing, get on this train, and be part of it, which is going to make it real interesting when it comes time to make final decisions because high level competition for those spots means preseason games could be very interesting on another level, right? One, two, it's that vets versus kids conversation. What do you do? Do you keep a young player because you're worried about the future? Or do you keep a vet because you're trying to win right now and that vet might help you win a game? One game is valuable. That vet, Kurt Thomas won a game in Utah that season, 2013, on a broken ankle. But he won again. And it was a very important win that year. They were all banged up. They had nobody. It was the end of a trip. They were tired. It was a bad trip. And Kurt Thomas gave like one of the last great performances of his career on what became a broken ankle. And it just shows you how you never know when somebody that you just kept on the roster, a vet, just has a night and helps you win a game. So that's why, there's going to be a lot of interesting decisions to make. And that's what makes preseason, for me, it's going to be a little extra special to watch, even in the fourth quarter of preseason games. Which a lot of times you're not really paying too much attention to it, but you might want to this time around.
Yeah, and absolutely. And also, I don't know if you feel this way because I've had this discussion, and shout out to the Knicks chat that I'm in. We're still trying to keep it busy during the off season. Now we're getting rolling again. But we felt that even though this is the longest the Knicks had made it, I think they played their last game on May 31st. And they
Yep.
had how many seasons in the 21st century did it end in mid-April? I mean, too many to count, right? But
Yeah.
still, for some reason, it ended in the end of May, and the anticipation, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because we're about, on this championship run. Hopefully, it feels like forever. I mean, the timing of everything is like just throw the ball up. It's amazing how when you're excited about a team, we've
Yep.
waited so long for stability that now it's like let's just play again. Let's go.
I also blame the fact that our baseball, well, at least the Mets have gone into a tailspin. The football teams are
Football,
0-6. Like
yeah.
there's nothing else happening right now, to be honest with you. So it does give you that, hey, we need something to feel good about because the last time you had that feeling was in that run. You know, it is true. It's amazing you said May 31st because I remember thinking that
Hmm.
is like I've never covered a season into June and missed it by a day, right? Like so that was
I was
when you
thinking
said
that.
May 31st. I'm like, yes, it was May 31st. I remember saying we missed it by a day, working into June
Game
on the
seven
Knicks
would have been
broadcast.
June.
Yep, that's right. So this does have that anticipation though for a lot of fans that are old enough to remember. The Knicks went into the 93-94 season. I believe it was plus 200 they had the shortest championship odds of any team in the NBA going into that season.
No Jordan.
Right. That's the first year again. Jordan stepped away to play baseball, and so everybody felt the door was open for the Knicks that year. When you look at the odds going into this season, I believe the Knicks are tied for third shortest odds. So I can't imagine there was another season in the last 32 years where they were any higher than third shortest odds to win a championship until you went back to that year, 93, 94, when they went in as the odds-on favorite going into the season to win it all, and they got to Game 7. So, that's why there is good reason to have that anticipation. The East is missing a lot, not because a player stepped away like Jordan did. This is more because of injuries. There is opportunity to seize for the Knicks this year.
Yeah, no question. And you talked about the door being open. And I think the unique thing, part of it's the elephant in the room, and maybe even not so, because people are going to talk about and ask about it today with Mike Brown, but they're also going through a coaching change.
Yep.
Right in the middle of all this, the guy that, that's why I always tip my cap. You can say whatever you want about Julius Randle, you can say whatever you want about Tibbs. We were going bad for a long way, and these guys
Hmm. Hmm.
pushed it forward, and now there's a transition. Okay, now is there that next level? I would argue people on Tibbs a lot, but what is the what are you hearing around the league in terms of Brown, and what do you expect to be implemented that could be of change that could help this ball club?
Yeah, I think we'll see it on the offensive end. I just think he will have a different way that he wants to play, and he likes to be up tempo.
Mhm.
I think I would expect we'll see them try to play the way they played in Sacramento. Um, the problem is that like I hate contradicting myself because I was like you, like I was the first to admit when Tibbs was let go, I was stunned. I was shocked. I did not expect it. I thought back-to-back 50-win seasons and everything it's just that's a tough decision, but it's a decision that you make if the locker room tells you it's time to make it now rather than in December if you felt like it was inevitable. So that's why again, I don't know enough about those conversations to have an opinion, but was I surprised? Absolutely. Because I know that Tom Thibodeau wanted to play faster. He wanted to run more. He did these are things he wanted to do. But that's what I think Mike Brown is going to push more than anything to emphasize the athleticism, the wings, and get up and down the floor and get into offense quicker. That might be an adjustment for Jalen Brunson. I don't know.
Mm.
Those are all things to watch. But depth, of course, using the depth, those are things that they didn't have last year. Great depth. When you look at the roster now, you got it. You can't tell me they don't have much better depth this year, at least on paper, than they did last year. So, how much of an impact will that have when you think back to the game in San Antonio, the game in Charlotte? Games late in the season
Those are
that
bad ones.
teams you should be winning, that teams you should be beating, that you lose those games because you could just see the team was tired. So um, those are the things I'm curious to see what Mike Brown does. But I'm also curious to see how the team is like. Is there an adjustment period?
Mm.
Because I don't know if there's anybody that's going to give the Knicks the first 20 games and just say, "Oh, be patient. It's a new coach." I think everybody wants the Knicks to be 19-1. I think the expectation is going to be, no, you should get out of the gate fast, be 18-2. Right?
Mm.
That's what I think people are going to want. I don't know if you're getting it, but whether it's right or wrong, the anticipation and the excitement for the season is also going to lead to a ton of pressure and expectations almost out of the gate, regardless of that you made a coaching change.
Definitely. And you know what? You mentioned that 2013 season. I remember, I think it was either a 17 or 18-5 type start. And I've mentioned throughout the offseason that I think the players, now they always want to win. We know that. But
Yep.
I think to kind of get this heat off Brown a little bit too, and knowing that if they do get out to that 4-6, 5-5 start, that you know what the story is going to be. Whether that's fair or not, because there's 72 games after that, it's really not, but
Right.
I think the players will, I'm going to say play harder because of it, because they're going to play hard regardless. But I think there might be an emphasis to get out of the gate hot. And I actually think they will as a result, not the only reason, but to maybe take some of that heat off of Brown.
Well, you could also consider that opponents aren't going to know what to expect.
Mm.
They don't know. They don't, because when Tibbs was coach 5 years, you kind of knew year after year, you knew what they were going to do. I think in the start of the season, you could surprise some teams by a different style or a different approach, whatever it is, and take advantage of it. I I know this sounds, but I mean, you played, so you understand.
Mm,
I've always been big on, I'll know how serious a team is by how they show up. And when I say that, I mean, I've covered teams when they come in and everybody is like in elite shape. Everybody came in and you could just see guys got better. There's an attitude, whatever it is. And you could see it in preseason, just nobody's tired. Nobody gets tired. That's when you know, okay, everybody came in locked in.
mm,
That's what you want to see. Like to me, that matters more than anything else because the attitude of the team, the approach of the team walking into it, like, okay, this is our year. Not coming into the year with that intensity would concern me. This group's not built like that, in my opinion. So I don't think you're going to have that problem. But I just think they know what's ahead of them. And when you know, like if you go into the offseason knowing everything you knew about all the injuries, and then you knew like the additions you made to the team, how could you not say to yourself, if you're on the Knicks, if you're one of the core players, like, all right, I'm coming in the best shape of my life because this could be the year,
mm.
and I don't want to be the reason why not. So I think this group's built like that, which is what makes me excited about what could happen this year.
Absolutely, man. Listen, it's going to be extremely exciting. I know you got a real busy schedule over there. You're getting pulled in a million different directions. So always just a couple more points, and I
Sure.
appreciate you coming on. Really do, and the fans of this program as well. You have been on shows, and I mentioned that a couple times. Is there a part of you that remembers, what it was like getting started and wanting to give other people opportunity and in that humble approach, be like, hey, I don't know this person. Maybe I'll look at their page a little bit, but your willingness, because you run into people all the time, but in December, I came up to you like, hey, the season's tough. I'm very busy. Maybe, give me a shout in the off season, man of your word. You responded and said, I'll give you some time. Is part of you saying, hey, I appreciate people on that grind. I know what it's like and I want to be able to provide for those people that are doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how else to explain it other than like I love good energy and I love people that when you're passionate about something, I love to share that, Like I think it's more like that than anything else. If I can give the time I will. And I do feel bad there are times
Mm-hmm.
like especially now the way my schedule's changed, there's some people like we're recording this in the morning, which is now my available time.
Right.
And there are people that, they work and then they do their podcast at night and they're like, hey, I need you to come on. Like I usually record at 7. I'm like, that I'm on the air till 7 and then I'm commuting home from my studio. Like I can't do that. And then once I get home, I'm a dad. I got 4 kids. Like I don't, by the time I get home, it's 8 o'clock. Like it's give me an hour and a half with my kids before everybody goes to bed. So that's changed for me and I'm just not as available. So I've had to adjust. And I try to make that clear. Like I'm not saying no because I'm above it. A lot of times I have to say no because the schedule just doesn't work. And then during the season, it's almost impossible for
Mm.
me to make the time for it. And I try. That's why this time of year, preseason, I like doing it here because we can anticipate the season. I still have just I only have one job going right now, and so I can fit it in if like you were able to accommodate the morning. But when it comes to anybody that is, like you said, grind, like anybody that is putting in the effort, yeah, like you want to work with people like that. Like you want to, what can I do for you? How can I help you? What do you need from me? Because we've all been there, right? Like I was a first year beat writer at one time who didn't know anyone, who had to have somebody say, I got you. Yeah, no, hey, this is how we do it, or this is the way you have to go. Everybody needs that. And then there's also the first couple of times where I have to develop sources. Who's willing to talk to me? Who's willing to give me 5 minutes?
Mm.
Who's willing to do an interview with me, even though I'm a nobody? Like that's how I remember feeling that way. I would literally sometimes preface it like, I know I'm a nobody, but
Yeah.
and that's kind of, that's kind of how it has to work. But there's always somebody that does that. So I guess it's that, pass it along kind of mentality of there were people that did that for me. And I think of a guy like John Andres, who's like one of my favorite people. And he was one of the first people that when I got on the beat, just came over. I mean, this guy legend that I grew up watching. And he came to me, introduced himself. "Well, if you need anything," and then we just started talking basketball and backgrounds, and he didn't have to do any of that, but he did. So I feel like that's something that reminds me that when you come up to me and it's at a game and I'm going to give you as much time as I can while I can, and it's just the right thing to do. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? You mentioned some people that have helped and mentors, and now you're becoming that, right? I mean, like that's the circle. I mean that like not in the aging
You just,
aspect
you
of
just in a nice way. You said you're old now.
it. No, but but really there's a generation of people, and I love seeing the Nick jerseys now out because there was a time where we didn't see them as much. I work a lot
Yeah,
in youth basketball, and you saw LeBrons and Currys and stuff, and now
yeah,
it's New York. Now there's pride in the team. And there's a group of big basketball fans, kids, teenagers, young people that are going to recognize you, and they're going to grow up on you and what you've done for us, and been able to, every time you turn on the screen, right, there's Han, there's Wally, and it's much appreciated the work. I say that to everybody that covers the team, but for you to give me time and instill confidence in what I'm doing, text my dad after this. I mean, I grew up on this. Like I tell people the story. I woke up from an eye surgery at 7 years old. And my first thought, I had a patch on my eye. I turned to my dad. I'll never forget. I said, "How am I watching the Knicks playoff game tonight?" This has been in my blood forever. Like I got
that's
basketball
great.
DNA. I just absolutely love the team and love the sport, which is why I did a little of this in college. And people are like, "Hey, get started again." I've done this for a few years now, and it's just that bug is whether the team
Mhm.
wins 17 games or 45, 50 games, it never goes away. Try to give that to kids now when I'm coaching, and like I said, these conversations, I'll cherish it. I'll be on a basketball high now for, we've had other guests on the show, and that's no disrespect to them, but we know what you mean to the organization, how much time you put into it. So, it means a lot to everyone, really does.
It's great when you can talk to somebody who understands you're crazy,
Mm,
right? Like, because think about it, like you just have such a passion for it, you almost can't explain it. And
mm.
there's probably people that look at you like a lot of times the Jets fans, we do this, and I've reached a point too where it's like, why do you like just stop watching? Like, why do you watch? But you can't,
Yeah,
you can't explain it. It's just, no, I have to. Like, I cannot let go of it. So you go through a 17-win season. You
mm,
go through draft picks that completely bust. You go through a big time free agent saying, I'd rather play somewhere else than play for your team. You go through all those things. You go through an injury that came at the worst possible time. And why? Like, why did that have to happen? You go through, I can just chapter and verse, John Stark's having the worst game of his life on my birthday. Like
luckily I was too young for that one.
like there's things, and I love John. Like
Yeah,
why
yeah,
he was one of my favorite players before I even met him, and it's like why, why now? He doesn't
mm,
deserve this. His story's too good for him to have a
yeah,
game like that. But there's other people that I had friends of mine. They'd laugh at me like why do you even like that team? It's like I can't explain it. I just do. So
yeah,
when you find other people that have that same crazy you do,
yeah.
you don't have to explain it to them. Like what you told me about getting into it and how much you love it. I'm just nodding because I understand it. I don't look at you like, why are you doing this? Like, what do you mean? Like, I know why, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, listen, it really is. You nailed it with the community and other people and relationships. But I just think about it with my dad growing up and then doing
That's
this
cool.
and then doing this, the community feel like I'm doing watch parties and the
Mm.
lives after the games and the people, the anticipation with others. And then you starting to see that. I said the coolest part about this whole thing, I don't care really about it making money. People are like, oh, monetize it. Yeah, of course, that's a goal. Like the finance
Sure,
is the goal,
sure,
right? Like, but
sure.
I think it was Ice Cube one time I saw a quote. He's like, if you can't, don't talk to me if you can't do something 5 to 7 years for free. Don't even talk to me.
Hmm.
And he's talking about that love for it, and that connection with others that you mentioned. And that to me is what it's all about. I've been able to connect with other diehards, and guys that, the Anthony MSGs of the world, like those type of fans, like shout out to him. And there's many others, there's other people like that you connect with on this journey. And people want to not knock social media all the time. Listen, I know there's a lot of negative to it,
Yeah.
but that's obviously one of the positives is, hey, let me find people with common interests and connect with them and start something like this where, if the passion's there and the knowledge is there, something real special can happen.
Isn't what you just said is brilliant because that is what social media was originally designed for. Connecting people who have the same interests, so they can be connected while not living near each other,
Mm,
right? Like that was really what it was supposed to. And I think that's why sports is the best thing for social media. And anything beyond that, I wouldn't recommend.
or
You know what
maybe
I
like
mean? So
music or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
music, like things like that. But
Yeah.
I feel like it is the great connector. It's
Hmm.
the one thing that crosses all divides. And that's what I loved about, I'll leave you with this. This is one of my, again, favorite moments
Hmm.
is halftime game 6 against Boston. They asked Wally, Bill, and I to go out onto the plaza on 33rd Street. That there might have been 5,000 people out there at that
I
moment.
was out there. I went to that game.
You were there. Okay. So
Yeah.
we went out there at halftime. The Knicks were up like 27 points. Like you knew
Yeah.
Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Like you knew. And that energy and just looking out to all the people, like going all the way to 7th Avenue and just standing there and I'm like, I don't even know what to say. So I just started, typical me, I'm just giving stats of the first half. It's so stupid, but I
Yeah.
don't know what to say. But just feeling every time I would say something, the roar coming back and the cheering and the emotion and like just like this was such a vibe and looking out and realizing like you talk about a Crayola box of humanity because it's New York, number one, so we already have that. But
Mhm.
number two, you've got all walks of life all together, and they're all happy for one thing, and that's what's better than that. So now, and I always say this, as I said to one of the cops who was trying to clear 7th Avenue that night,
Mm.
and I just said, imagine if they actually win the whole thing.
It's a crazy thought. I got hit by a couple water bottles. That's when I got in the LIRR after that because I started getting violent out there. But listen, my last question, it's a quick one. I just saw you on a father's podcast. Right? I love
Yeah.
that interview, by the way. That was awesome. Um, Knicks win a championship, fifth child, Jalen. I thought you were kidding about that, but I didn't know if it was a joke originally. I'm like, wait, maybe
It's
that's how much he loves the
it's
team.
taken on a life of its own now. My wife's not thrilled. I'm in my 50s, so having another kid right now would probably not be a great idea. But I said it, and we'll just have to see what happens.
You're the best, man.
Let's hope I have a tough decision to make.
Yeah, well, you're the best. Again, really appreciate this.
You got it.
And, great conversation. Look forward to following you all year, man.
You got it.